And I'm also taking a break until late January, like with last year. Although I might be able to squeeze out my full seasonal video, if you're lucky.
Well, I guess you weren't lucky. OMG, this is so sad. Alexa, play Brave Song by Aoi Tada. Happy New Year, by the way.
So, the fall season happened, and I managed to watch 3 new shows. Yes, 3, because I also had to finish up 3 shows continuing from previous seasons. And FYI, Beastars isn't going to be mentioned in this video, despite the fact it's supposedly the second coming of Christ. I'll maybe get around to watching it when I'm less busy. But here's the fall season, and yes, it pains me that I'm not using the word autumn, but goddammit, I've got to make this video hit the algorithm somehow. For the sake of you not clicking off this video immediately, here's My Hero Academia Season 4, and it ain't beating around the bush. Oh no, this show knows exactly where the bush will be in the future and what position it'll be in, and so we'll beat the fuck out of it, taking that factor into consideration. 1 episode of reintroduction and then BAM! We get an arc which I feared would just be a retread of the internship arc, but evolved itself into Heroes versus the Super Cartel. Boku no Hero Academia? More like Boku Narcos Academia. Less than a minute into my first video for the decade and I've already made an awful joke. The cast, as expected from a new season of Hero Arca, is developed in areas that weren't previously developed. And so it's nice that the writing doesn't put all of its eggs into one microwave. Kirishima is shown to be a literal solid dude, Lemillion is a fairly interesting comparison with Deku, and Toga has been an interesting presence, although that might be down to the fact that waifus in this season are few and far between. I was concerned that the plot would feel like it wasn't going anywhere now that All Might's out of the picture, and I assume that he is going to be important later, but this season has shown that the story can continue without saying All Might's name every 10 seconds, although maybe this condition is nullified with the presence of Half Might here. But on to the other Studio Bones endeavour that I caught up with this season, we have part 2 of Carol and Tuesday. Coming off the back of Martian X Factor, I was worried that the show would just go back into only focusing on Carol and Tuesday. Yeah, I'm not sure where I don't want to see Carol and Tuesday in a show called Carol and Tuesday. But what this part of the show did was flesh out the universe of the show, and I think this worked.
For the most part.
I suppose if there's any immediate aspect that I must commend, it's going to have to be what happened with Angela. This half starts off with her learning that in the future everyone acts like a K-pop stan, and then sees her descend into having the second creepiest drug trip featuring a toy rabbit depicted in anime. The songs from the first half have grown on me, and the new songs in this half are, once again, interesting. Some of the lyricism even being pretty impressive for something that wasn't even written in the language it was sung in. Wait a minute, no it fucking wasn't. And now, you know I said that the world building works
For the most part.
You see, there's a political scandal subplot, and it's fucking bullshit. At best, it's tedious to watch, and at worst, it causes pretty obvious plot holes within the narrative. But while basically everything of that subplot is predictable, it does thankfully only take up about 3 minutes of each episode at most, so it doesn't feel as overbearing as it could have been. But the series managed to prove itself, and I can confirm that this is certainly better than the last time that Netflix tried to show a child actress turned singer being turned into a Vocaloid while they're on life support. To be fair, anything's better than the last time they tried that. So I felt that I hadn't watched enough drama series recently. I also felt that I hadn't watched enough sports anime, period. The Stars Line became a series I frequented this season, and it is one I'm somewhat divided on. It's a show that follows the story of soft tennis Kirito, who moves to a new area and is begged to join the boys' soft tennis club at his school, which is by far the shitter one. He is reluctant to join, but eventually caves in after being offered money, because his abusive father frequently takes his family's money. So this sets up 2 different elements to the story. The sport element, where we see some guys learn the impact of properly handling their balls, and the drama element, where a man beats the fuck out of a small thing. And, as I mentioned, the show doesn't just divide its genres, but also its quality at points. For me, there were way too many characters. The protagonist, the 6 other members of the soft tennis club, then on top of that you have the club manager, the various families of the soft tennis club members, the school Führer, and just to put the cherry on top, we have useless.png, the tsundere that no one asked for. There are some characters that I really like, for example, the one with glasses, who I feel shows flaws from time to time, but also manages to stay a solid character. And that's not just because of the backstory where his mother gave him the old Todoroki special. But I can't say that they're particularly engaging characters, largely on account of the fact that I've forgotten their names and I've resorted to using nicknames. Seriously, I've fucking forgotten what they're all called. The show also demonstrates the perils of having flat character design in a show where all the character arcs happen at the same time. I feel that this problem could have been avoided the same way Bunny Girl Senpai avoided it, which was a show with somewhat bland character design, but still managed to avoid the problem of confusing its characters by having each arc happen at one time. Now, I kinda can't talk about this show without mentioning its darker subject matter, and in some places it's handled really well. For example, Soft Tennis Kirito is, well, Soft Tennis Kirito, and a bit of a Gary Stew for the most part. But we actually manage to gauge something about his personality when he's helpless against his father. It allows us to empathise him by showing him with weakness. But the thing is, like the children themselves, this plot point is kind of abused, because when you see this happen the first time, it feels like heavy subject matter. But the umpteenth time you see it, it feels like, "Hi Dad, hi son, it's that time of the evening again." Oh, so it is. The tennis itself is actually one of the more engaging aspects of the show, because there's a bit of tension in each of the scenes, and I find myself getting genuinely excited. And each game ends with the audience understanding a surprising amount about the people on both sides of the court. It should be noted that the rug got yoinked out from under this show because it was cut in half. The second season supposedly won't come out until 2021, and so the ending cliffhanger is unlikely to be resolved. So I'm in no state to recommend this show. Unless you want to make child abuse jokes, because in that aspect, this show slaps. Also, I appreciate Shouty One with Emoto and Shouty One with Wankramp's tactics of screaming to intimidate their competition, although this could just be because I caught up with Vinland Saga is still pretty fucking good, as you no doubt know, and on one hand I want to tell you all about it, but at the same time, I don't want to ruin this experience even slightly for you. But here we go with minimal spoilers. Thorfinn, and yes, it's pronounced Thorfinn, not Thorfinn, like I've been doing previously, takes a backseat and we see the plight of the best Welshman in anime. This show does something unexpected with each new episode, with one episode being about a huge battle, the next being a character study, the next focusing on the wider historical context, and then the next one being a character study of someone caught in the midst of a battle that gives an insight into the wider historical context. Every character ends up having a satisfying arc, even the characters you thought they wouldn't characterise, like the representation of the ugly bastard tag, Viking Alexander Armstrong, and was a drunken preacher man. And that's all I'm saying without spoiling this fucking masterpiece of a show. Moving on. Fire Force has overshadowed My Hero Academia for me, and I'm okay with that. The show's animation quality is through the fucking roof, especially in the other David Productions fight this year that featured someone who can manipulate time in an underground room full of pillars. Yes, I have to be that vague in order to avoid spoilers. The cast has expanded to the extent that I'm considering making characters in a nutshell on this show, and a delectable set of waifus. And this show both fills the Soul Eater niche, while also expanding beyond it, with more trippy imagery and weird humour, but also avoiding filler. And that's not to say I find the Soul Eater filler episodes to be bad, far from it. It's just that Fire Force manages to have the similar light-hearted moments without having to slow the plot down. It's hard to say who Best Girl is, because it's genuinely hard to pick. Or that's what I would say if we didn't have the Crusader girl who literally praises the sun. The choice is fucking obvious, people. And finally, let's talk about No Gun's life, or as I call it, Rock'em Glock'em Robots. Those of you who know me well will know that I was drawn to this because of the cyberpunk setting, also because I haven't watched Psycho Pass yet. And it delivers on this cyberpunk setting in some respects. The decision to go down the neo-noir route was appreciated. I like me some good detective stuff, but I do admit the concept of augmented humans go crazy and get discriminated against has been done to death in a lot of recent cyberpunk media. Thankfully, No Gun's life does not see itself as the second coming of Ghost in the Shell, and goes about making its cast likeable instead of deep representations of the society that we truly live in. Juzo was as hardboiled a detective as could be, to the point where it bordered on self-awareness and made it so it didn't accidentally look too deep into a character who literally has a gun for a head. Although I do admit that Madhouse somehow made it so a piece of metal was more expressive than some of the human characters. And Mary was also fun to watch, with her basically being every anime I'm sorry what face amalgamated onto Winry from Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. And while the CG is used a bit too much in some places, some of the fight scenes are actually pretty badass, despite the fact this is how they go.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Bam! The finger gun!
And so I'd give this one a shot. You see, it's a clever joke because Juzo has a gun for a head.